Welcome back. Jean-Paul, I have to believe that financial education has to be a big part of this solution, right? It's partly why I do this show and why we have this education or this discussion as well. What are your thoughts and where do you think the gaps are when it comes to education?
Yeah, I definitely think education is part of the solution, and you know, uh, an educated investor is better able to protect themselves. But it's a real challenge to, you know, get that information out there and help investors, understand. It's a pretty complicated world in terms of the investment and capital markets and things like that. So I think we need to keep at it, but I think we also need to try to find other ways to protect investors.
Where do you think the biggest gaps are then to support them, and how does the industry and the different players, come together to do this?
Yeah, I think where the rubber really hits the road is very much on the client advisor relationship. And I think a really big question we all should be asking ourselves is whether the existing requirements in terms of the level of education and experience that advisors have to have is still sufficient. And I think, given the fact that we know from the survey that investors rely overwhelmingly on the advice they're given, it's really important that that advice be, good advice and be coming from somebody who really knows what they're talking about.
Yeah. What regulatory changes should investors be watching for this year? What are you watching for?
Uh, well, we mentioned one. We are looking for total cost reporting.
Yeah.
We think that's going to be very important. One thing we're hoping to see is around titles and the use of titles. We've been quite concerned with some developments in Ontario around this new title protection framework that came into force in June of 2022. And we're concerned about the risk it poses to investors. So we're hoping to see some changes.
Title protection, you mean the title advisor and who can use it?
Yeah.
Or is that something else?
So there's two titles in Ontario currently protect. One is the title of financial planner, and the other one is financial advisor. The fundamental problem is that when most people think of a financial advisor, they expect someone to give them comprehensive financial advice. But currently, under the existing regime, if anybody can provide you with financial advice, provided, for example, your license to sell mutual funds. So if you're talking to somebody who's only selling you mutual funds, in our view, that hardly qualifies them to be a financial advisor.
And they don't have fiduciary duty either.
There is no fiduciary duty at that level.
Okay. So that's developing in Ontario. Anybody doing it right? Other provinces?
Well, Saskatchewan has published a proposal, and they're actually they consulted specifically on whether they should take a more comprehensive approach to who should be able to call themselves a financial advisor, which we fully support. We think that's the right way to go about it, and we think it'll help close the gap between what consumers expect in terms of who they're dealing with and the actual proficiency and qualifications of the person they're dealing with.
Okay. We have about 45 seconds to the end of the show. Anything else you're watching for?
Um, Certainly this year, the new SRO was established, and they're going to be setting up an investor advisory panel and a new investor office. So we're very interested in seeing how that evolves and develops. And obviously, the new SRO still has a lot of work to do in terms of essentially amalgamating and combining, the enforcement programs from two different SROs, amalgamating
Self-regulatory organizations.
Yes, yeah. And so there's still a lot of work to be done on that, but they were just recently established on Jan 1 of this year. So
Okay.
it's still much early days.